Really glad you're here today, both online, Middleville, welcome, and then here in the room. I want to ask you a question, and just heads up, it's a rhetorical question, okay? I don't know if you've been in somewhere before where there's a question been asked and someone says, like, mayonnaise, and it's like, well, it was rhetorical, okay? So that's one of these questions today. You may understand why when I show you the word we'll talk about today. Have you seen this word before? Misinformation. Again, it's a rhetorical question, okay? You're seeing why here. You're seeing why. And maybe more, have you seen this word? What comes to mind when you see this word? What comes to mind? Maybe you think of a news channel or various news channels or a stream of news. Maybe you think of social media. Maybe think about AI and image generation, right? And I'm an NBA fan. This year, there was a lot of shakeups in the NBA. There was a lot of big trades, big moves that happened. But I found myself like triple checking every single update I saw, right? Like you'd see the graphic, breaking news, and it's like, is this real? Like, is this true? Did Luka really go to the Lakers? Is that a thing? Okay. But maybe in your favorite sport, it's the same thing. It's like there's a trade deadline. You start to fact check. You start to say, am I being misinformed? Or if someone says to you, the event's at 6:30, you're like, is it really at 6:30? Every other event has been at 7. Are you really telling me the truth? Are you sure you're accurate? Now, we can be intentionally misinformed, right? If you think about people using image generation or videos, things like that, or articles that are fabricated or plagiarized, like we can be intentionally misinformed, but we can also be unintentionally misinformed. I don't know if you've ever been unintentionally misinformed. Sometimes you just get told the wrong time, and you show up when you thought you're supposed to show up, and the person that told you when the time was thought that it was the right time, and it was just a misinformation. It was just a mishap. It was unintentional. I want to talk about something today that we've been misinformed about in this whole journey of following Jesus. Something that when we think about our lives with him and we think about what the scriptures have to say about who he is and what he's called us to, for a lot of us, we've been misinformed. And some of that's been intentional. Some of it's been intentional through teaching or content or media. Some of it's been unintentional. Some of it's just been groupthink and trends or things we've seen. And it's formulated this way of thinking, this paradigm that we have when it comes to something that the scripture is pretty clear about, not all the way clear about, but pretty clear. We can draw some stakes in the ground around this topic when we really anchor ourselves in what Jesus has said. And it's around this idea of heaven. And just to get us thinking a little bit, some of us, when we think of heaven, when we think we've been informed about heaven, our perspective of heaven is sometimes it's shaped by an image like this. Okay, when you think of heaven, you think of like all of us transfiguring into cloud angels maybe with a harp or a stringed instrument or maybe like a Cupid arrow, chubby babies floating on clouds for all of eternity. That sounds more like hell to me. That just does not sound like, I do not want any part of that, right? When we think about heaven, we think of like, yeah, I just transfigure into this little baby, and that's where we hang out with Jesus and Grandma Susan, and that's where we hang out for all of eternity. Some of us like that's literally what comes to our mind. Another example is when I think about going to heaven, or even some of the verbiage we use, it's an implication of an image like this. It's like that heaven has an address, like heaven has a zip code, and if I just can climb the stairs, if I just someday I'm going to look up the stairway, I'm going to make that, maybe, you've even heard the phrase like stairway to heaven. Like that's a thing. In the Old Testament, they said, man, we're just going to build a tower big enough that we can suddenly be in the heavens. Like it's just this location. I just need to get there. It's a little bit above 30,000 feet. It's just right above where the airplanes hang out. It's this location that we somehow enter into. Speaking of entering into maybe an image like this, when you think about eternity or you think about how to be with God, how to be where he is for all eternity, maybe something like this comes into your mind and your heart. It's like, man, if I just do enough good, then I'll get there someday. If I just don't do too much bad, I'll be with him. I'll be good enough. I'll be right enough with him to spend eternity with Jesus. And most of us, it's not been this intentional, ill-motivated understanding, but we have some conclusions, some thought around heaven and eternity and what is to come after this life as we know it and see it. That's honestly, it's misinformed. It's undeveloped. It's not totally in line with what the scriptures would have for us. And Jesus was very clear about some things and very unclear about other things. Jesus didn't like to get to talked about like timetables, and he even said like the Son of Man doesn't know when and how and all the timing of that. But he's very clear on what is to come. He's very clear on the motivation and the why and the heart. And when we're not clear around those things, it can lead to a couple mindsets. It can lead to a couple postures. And the first is confusion. Like if you just take those three images we talked about, if you have a little cherub baby plus a staircase plus a scale of good and bad, like how do those fit together, and how do I move forward with wisdom and with skill and with perspective in the life I live right now? It can just lead to confusion, or maybe we're not sure. Maybe you read Revelation, you did like, I'm going to read the Bible in a year, and you got to like December, and you're like, whoa, this got weird. You know, like Jesus, okay, he's healing, he's teaching, all that good stuff, and the epistles, I can kind of understand that. And then you read Revelation, you're like I want to go back to January. This is like a nightmare, you know? Maybe it's just this confusion. You're not really sure how to handle it, how to think about it, how to approach it. And sometimes our confusion can lead to a place of, honestly, apathy. We think about like heaven, and we think about Jesus coming back, and we think about new heavens and new earth, and man, I kind of like my life here. Like, I kind of like what I got going, and I kind of like the retirement I'm building. I kind of like some of the vacations I have planned. If we're honest, we can think about eternity, and it's almost like a little bit of apathy sets in. Like, I don't really know what to think of that, and I don't really want to. It's not really that interesting to me, if I'm honest. And what's encouraging, if we're at that place where we're misinformed or a little uninformed, is that one, we're not alone. We're not alone, because we're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to understand, and much of the New Testament was people trying to figure it out. And two, we can grow in it. We can take a step forward today, and that's part of why in the next 25 minutes, I love to say, can we just take a step forward in that? Can we just move forward with it? We're not alone. Paul wrote in 1 Thessalonians, this book of the Bible we've been in, to some people who he actually uses the language to be uninformed. He actually uses the language to be misinformed, to have that understanding not quite shaped. Let's go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. He says this, "Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope." Paul's audience, they believed that people who had passed away already, people that were part of their church, part of their network of Jesus followers, and they had died, there was this concern that had set in that, oh no, if Jesus comes back for everybody that's on earth, and the people who passed away, like are my friends that have passed away, are they going to miss it? Like, are they discounted of this thing? And there was this very real confusion, whether it was through false teachers or sort of just some skewed paradigms that they had. There was this very real concern about, like, all of us who are still living are good if Jesus comes back. But the people who've already passed away, like, sorry, it's not going to work out for them. And Paul addresses that, and he says, wait, guys, you are off track. You are uninformed. Listen to this. We don't want you to be uninformed about it, so that you don't grieve like the rest of mankind who has no hope. And this is the hope. Paul says this is the hope we have as Jesus followers. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again. We believe that Jesus died and rose again. And so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. This is what he's saying. He said, hey, that hope you have, the gospel, the good news that you believed, that Jesus, God in flesh, would come and not just take your sin and not just take on shame and separation from God, but that he would take it to the grave and that he would rise again. He said, like, resurrection is easy for Jesus. Resurrection is easy for Jesus. He said, he's already done this. He's already beat it. He already said to his friend Lazarus, Lazarus, come on out. So he said, don't get so skewed by this little nuance of whether people are physically alive or physically dead. Jesus is going to unite them all. We are eternal beings, and Jesus has accomplished an eternal hope. You can say it this way. Paul's trying to remind them. He's trying to form in them. He's trying to help them be shaped by this understanding that we have an indestructible hope in Jesus. We have an indestructible hope in Jesus. He's bringing them back to the resurrection, that if we really believe that Jesus is who he says he is, that he actually took death upon him, took it to the grave, and rose again, then what else would be impossible? What else would get our hope off track? He's saying, you have an indestructible hope in Jesus. And for us today, the issue is not how much hope we have. It's not what's the amount of your hope. The issue is what's the object of your hope? What's the anchor of your hope? Your hope is only as strong as the thing you put your hope in. And Paul is saying, if you put your hope in the resurrection of Jesus, it's already done. He already said, I've got the keys of death, hell, and Hades. I love that. Like Jesus just like, over here, like I'm already got it, you know? And he's bringing this back to this reality. You already serve a God who has accomplished so much. You have an indestructible hope in him. I have a distant friend who gets to speak in a lot of places that most of us would not interact with. Top CEOs, executives all over the world. Gets to meet with national leaders and people of all walks of life, and just has this real gift of influencing them for Jesus, has this real gift of making a difference, not just in the business world and leadership world, but really in the spiritual realm. Gets to see hundreds of people every year give their lives to Jesus. And I heard him sharing in this context, and he said this: sometimes when he'll have a conversation with one of those really people that we feel like, man, they got life figured out, they're successful, they're wealthy, influential, all the things, and they'll share, he'll get to this conversation of sharing something that's hard in their life, whether it's a diagnosis or just the spiritual state that they're in, or an addiction or a loss. And they'll describe it, and you can just tell very quickly where their hope lies, where the end of the game is in their perspective. And he'll say this phrase, and I just love it so much. He said, man, I just wish you had my hope. Man, I wish so badly for you that you had my hope. Because my hope is indestructible. My hope is, Paul said, to live as Christ, to die as gain. He just says, man, I wish you could have my hope. And they're like, what do you mean? What hope? And he's like, well, let me tell you, I just love that, man. I wish you had my hope. What if those kind of people? We could look at the different circumstances of life and situations of life and ups and downs. And man, I just wish the world, as I read this news article, I just wish they had the hope I have in Jesus. Wish they had the hope that I get to live with, get to move. We have an indestructible hope in Jesus. And then Paul starts to point them towards the future. He says, this is what's to come. Not just way back then he accomplished something for you when he died and when he rose. Verse 16, for the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ, the people that you're actually worried about, they're gonna rise first. They're gonna rise first to meet him. I love that picture of the voice of the archangel. The voice symbols this authority. When God spoke the world in existence, he said light, and there was light. He said darkness, separate from the light, and it happened. When you have authority, when you speak, something happens. When you're like, hey, bring me a glass of water, and you're in charge, you're going to get a glass of water. And this is this idea, the voice of the archangel. It's calling this authority this moment to happen. And the trumpet's really the sound of gathering or assembly. It signifies this pivotal moment, and it starts to turn. When Jesus comes back, when he starts that, it's gonna end to completion. When he starts it because he has authority. When he starts the end, it's because he has authority to do it. Verse 17, after that, we who are still alive in our left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Again, this assembly, this gathering of people together. And so we will be with the Lord forever. Forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. Say, you have an indestructible hope. It's already happened, and it will happen. So you can be with him forever. If you're in a physical Bible or you're on your phone, just keep scrolling, or maybe go to chapter 5. Chapter 5, verse 1 and 4. He continues to walk this out, this what is to come. We think about heaven, eternity. Now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates and timetables and prophecies and wins and 88 reasons for 1988, like we don't need to write to you. For you know very well, some of us, we're just way too young for that joke. For you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Jesus used this imagery a lot. He said, even the Son of Man doesn't know, and he just started to describe it. These pictures, these metaphors. Even, you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Verse 3, while people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. Verse 4, but you, brothers and sisters, are not in darkness, so this day should surprise you like a thief. He will come. Paul's saying it's certain. It's certain. It's certain. He will come. It's certain. And I don't care what your current orientation towards Jesus is, it doesn't matter. It's certain. And when that day comes, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on. It's certain. He's coming for those he's called his own and who have responded to him. It's certain. It's certain. And it won't matter if you're a State fan or a Michigan fan. It won't matter if you like winter or you can't wait for spring. It won't matter all the preferences and the comforts and the priorities that we've set up in this life. When Jesus comes, because he has authority, what he says goes. When he starts the end, it is certain. It will happen. And the truth is this. Paul's saying it's certain, but it's unexpected. It's certain. It will happen. Do we know when? No. There are some signs we can see through the scriptures, through prophecies, through the words of Jesus, through the New Testament. There's some signs we can start to say, man, we're turning that corner. But that day of the Lord, that moment, it is certain, but it's unexpected. It's certain, but it's unexpected. I love the imagery of labor pains on a pregnant woman. I don't know what that means personally, but I know it's a thing. And it seems a little timely, like that we're in this chapter in this season of Journey. I don't know if you know, but there's at least on what's on my radar. Maybe some of us in the room have some news for other people. I don't know. But it's about five or six babies to come between now and September, at least in my circle of friends, my orbit. Some of those are family members, and a lot of those are at Journey. And so I just love the idea that we get that little pregnancy reference coming on here. But when we think about that illustration, really that's true, right? When those pains start to happen, when those contractions start to happen, it is the start of the end. It is the start of, we don't know exactly how long this will take. We don't know exactly all the ins and outs, but we are moving down a road and the train is not stopping, okay? Like this baby is coming forth one way or another, right? It's this great reminder, this is imagery. Now, as much as we don't know, Paul was not married. We don't know that for sure, but we know at this time he was likely not married. So he's probably seen that play out in other people's lives, right? And he's saying like, just like that happens, that is the start of the end, but it is certain, but it's unexpected. So live ready. So live waiting. So live anticipating. He goes on, but since we belong to the day, since we belong to the day, let us be sober. Since we belong to that day when Jesus will come, since we belong to Jesus and we are living in the light, Scripture says that his light has been shone into our hearts. Like we don't have to live in ignorance. We don't have to live in confusion. We don't have to live in apathy. We can be sober. And he gives some instruction here, putting on faith and love as a breastplate and the hope of salvation as a helmet. Faith and love. Faith and love. The breastplate was a two-piece piece of armor that they'd put on. It's got this front protection in the back and be sewn together on the sides. This heavy resistant metal. Paul's saying this, as you think about that day, as you think about Jesus coming and fully establishing his rule and reign on the earth, all things new, new heavens, new earth, a new day started, eternity with him. He said, put on faith. Put on faith. Keep putting on an active trust in Jesus. Keep putting on an active trust in the one who is coming again. Keep putting on faith, not in him, not in your own strength, not in your own wisdom, not in your own perspectives or understandings. Put on faith. Put on active trust in the person of Jesus. And put on love. The word love is agape. It's self-giving, self-emptying love. Both when that word is used in the New Testament, it's this picture of receiving and giving. Receiving selfless, self-giving love of the Father and doing our best to live it out. Paul says when you live with that active trust and you lived with an active receiving and giving of the love, it's hard for the enemy to get in there. It's hard for deception to creep up and take you by surprise. Putting on faith and love as a breastplate and the hope of salvation as a helmet. Think about the helmet. Has your mind, has your ears, your eyes. It's what you're processing. It's the way you're discerning. It's the way you're filtering the events, the thoughts, the lies, the truths of the life we live. Paul says, put on hope. Hope is a great filter to have. Your hope in Jesus is a great filter to say, man, this happened in my life. How does the hope I have in Jesus shape this situation in my life? How does the hope I have in Jesus inform this really hard conversation I just had to have? How does the hope I have in Jesus shape some of the lies I feel like are getting into my mind and are wreaking havoc there? It says, put it on. Keep it with you. Keep it with you. Think about that pregnancy illustration one more time with me. This is a bag. It's a cool leather bag. I know. It's a cool leather bag. In about 2 months, this will also be a hospital bag. Okay? We are expecting our second in May, a little baby boy, the best we know. The doctor says like 99.9%. I'm like, what's that 0.1? Like, what's going on there? But anyway, pretty sure it's a boy, the best they can determine. And with our first, Thea, she'll be 2 in April, and Thea's awesome. If you haven't met Thea, she's just awesome. She's just cool. And but for going to the hospital, obviously we had never done it before. And we had some advice and things like that, but we way overpacked for the hospital, okay? And we had like a rolling suitcase. I don't know. Maybe you packed lighter or heavier. No judgment, but we had like a hard shell rolling suitcase. It wasn't that big, but it could fit a lot of stuff in there. Most of it was food, of which I ate, okay? So I didn't know, like, when she's in labor, she can't eat. I'm like, so we're going to have them up all night, and you can't eat, but you're supposed to deliver a baby. Anyway, so we overpacked. And so this time, I'm like, maybe just get the essentials, you know? So if you think about the essentials, maybe, you know, I'm always cold, so I've got a hoodie, you know, because it's about me and my comfort. So we got some socks in here just in case, you know. I think we packed like 5 pairs of clothes the first time. Like, how long did you think you're going to be here, sir? I'm moving in. some protein. So you got some Aldi peanuts, just some things. Got the phone charger, right? Like the family text, where are the pictures? He's not here yet. Shut up. Okay, so phone charger, case, toiletries, water bottle, all that good stuff. But like keeping it pretty minimal this time, okay? Just keeping it pretty minimal. Again, I will probably eat all those peanuts. And so we got the hospital bag. And what the hospital bag does is, all these, I could probably throw this together pretty quick. I could probably throw those things together. Like, it's not rocket science to be like hoodie, snacks, water, all that good stuff. But what the hospital bag does is help you live ready. Helps you live ready. And it helps you to win while you're there or while you're in the process. Because it would really stink to get there 16 hours in with an old iPhone that's like at 12%. And then it's radio silence and like, what happened to Joel and Christy? We have not heard from Joel in 3 days. Well, I had a dead phone. I forgot my phone charger, right? Like the hospital bag helps you live ready, and it helps you win while you're there. It helps you not forget anything. It helps you be prepared. Paul's saying in this journey of life, he said like put on faith. Like make sure to keep faith, active, growing trust in Jesus. Make sure to keep that really close. Make sure to keep it growing and fostering. Make sure to put on love, agape love. Make sure that's in there, and make sure you just keep this hope of salvation, this hope that filters, that it's this great perspective to have. He goes on. He said, "For God did not appoint us to suffer wrath, but to receive salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. He died for us, so that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing." We see that theme again. So we could be with him. And Paul is just reminding them, hey, you have an indestructible hope. His return is certain. It's unexpected, but he will come, and his goal is relationship. His goal is relationship. The motivation of Jesus is so that we could be with him for eternity. The goal of the return of Jesus, of heaven, of eternity with him, is so that we could be with him and he could be with us. All throughout Revelation, you'll see that there's this picture of God among his people. That's his heart. It's a hope we have in him, that he creates all things new, that he cleanses the earth so he could dwell with us, so that we could know him. His goal is relationship. Peter would say this, that God is patient. He's patient, not wanting anyone to perish, not wanting anyone to live in eternal separation with him, but for all to come to repentance, to turning to him, to turning to relationship with him. God's motivation, his goal is not judgment. His goal is not perfection. His goal is not an arbitrary set of rules and set of standards that he needs to fulfill. His goal is pure, righteous relationship with him that he designed, that he created us in his image to have. His goal is relationship. And this reminder from Paul, we start to filter in, start to get back to the heart and the hope we have. And the reality is this: we can live with certainty and urgency, not confusion and apathy. We can live with certainty and urgency, not confusion and apathy. We can be certain that, yes, his return, he will come again. He will finish what he started. He will do what he said he will do. It's an indestructible hope. It's unexpected, but it's certain. With this goal of relationship, with this goal of being with you, being with me, being with us, in as many people as possible. We can live with certainty and urgency, not confusion and apathy. Paul wrote another version of, another part of the New Testament, rather, the book of Philippians. He says this, but our citizenship it's in heaven, and we eagerly await. We eagerly await with the growing faith and love and hope, keeping those things well equipped, well prepared alongside us. We eagerly await a Savior from there. He will take our weak, immortal bodies and change them into glorious bodies like his own, using the same power with which he will bring everything under his control. Are you living with certainty and urgency? Are you living ready? Are you living looking and eagerly awaiting his return, his coming, and making all things new? We're going to respond in a couple ways this morning. Before we do, I want to just give us really tangible things we can walk out of here with and just use as a little bit of a reference point and say, how am I living this? How am I living with certainty and urgency? The first thing is this: follow Jesus, not culture. Follow Jesus, not culture. Go back to where we started in 1 Thessalonians. They had things that were a little unprepared and misinformed. They were getting skewed and distracted, and some questions they had and off base of the hope they had in Jesus. It's this reminder to follow Jesus, not culture. Follow the perspectives and the priorities of Jesus. Come back to his word, to what he said in the scriptures. Come back to places like this that are a great reminder that we are serving a king. We are serving a God who has already done the impossible, who can do the impossible. Follow Jesus, not culture. And I heard someone say recently, it just resonated and challenged me so well. It said, if there's a disagreement between what you say and what Jesus says, you're wrong. And I'm wrong. And culture can even be me. Culture can even be me. Culture is not always evil, and culture is not always out there. Culture can be Joel. My own desires and my own understandings and my own apathy and my own tiredness. Culture can be me. Culture can be you. Follow Jesus, not culture. And number two, don't hoard hope. Don't hoard hope. If you really have an indestructible hope in Jesus, if your faith is in the reality that he took your sin and your separation, he bridged a gap between you and God that you could never bridge on your own. He took it to the grave and he rose again, that he really did beat death on your behalf and my behalf. Why would I hide it? Why would I hoard that? If someone asks you, maybe you'll be in a conversation like my friend gets to be in a lot. Man, I wish you had my hope. I wish you had a hope that didn't start here and can't be ended here. Like Shirley Caesar, the gospel singer, said that the world didn't give it and the world can't take it, with that kind of sass. I wish you had my hope. Don't hoard hope. Don't hoard the hope. Maybe you're just starting with Jesus. Don't hoard the hope of, man, he's starting to lead my life. He's starting to shape my life. I haven't got it all figured out. Don't hoard that. Don't hoard that. Don't hold that to yourself. Maybe you're here and you've been following Jesus for longer than I've been alive. Don't hoard that. Don't keep that to yourself. Follow Jesus, not culture. Don't hoard your hope.